Show me your hands on the wheel. Keep your hands on the wheel. Don't move! Don't move!
Hands in the air. Step out of the car. Hands in the air right now. The loud, sharp commands cut through the quiet Texas afternoon like a knife. A man slowly opens the door of a white Ford Explorer and steps out, his heart racing as he sees the barrels of real police weapons pointed directly at him. "Turn away from me," the officer yells, his voice full of authority. "Walk backwards towards the sound of my voice." The man, Silas Thorne, obeys, his hands reaching for the sky while his mind tries to process how a normal drive turned into a high-stakes felony stop. Every step backward feels like a mile as the gravel crunches under his feet. The deputies aren't taking any chances, they move with tactical precision, their eyes locked on Silas as if he were a dangerous fugitive. "Keep walking. Keep walking until I tell you to stop," the officer commands, the tension in the air thick enough to feel. Silas is confused and terrified, but as he reaches the officers, the order comes down hard: "Stop. Get down on your knees." Without a second thought, he hits the ground, the rough pavement pressing against his skin. "Hands behind your back." The cold metal of the handcuffs clicks into place, locking his wrists together. Just moments ago, he was the king of the road in a vehicle he thought made him a hero, but now he is just another suspect held down on the side of a Texas highway. The vehicle sitting on the shoulder of the road looks like it belongs in a high-speed chase, not a civilian driveway. It is a white Ford Explorer, but nearly every detail has been changed to mimic a real police cruiser. On the side, bold blue letters spell out police, and the familiar DARE logo is plastered near the back. From a distance, even an experienced officer would think it was a fellow deputy patrolling the area. The SUV is a masterpiece of deception, featuring a professional light bar on the roof and emergency lights tucked into the rear windows. It even has a spotlight mounted on the side, a signature tool for officers working the night shift. Inside the cabin, the transformation continues with a computer stand, a radio system, and a radar unit to track the speed of passing cars. To the average person driving by, this car is a symbol of the law. But to the real deputies standing on that Texas highway, it is a very questionable ride that crosses a dangerous line. They aren't just looking at a car, they are looking at a carefully built lie that was designed to mislead anyone who saw it. While Silas Thorne saw it as his greatest project, the police see it as a crime on wheels. Silas Thorne is not a typical criminal, he is a 61-year-old businessman who spent years working as a contractor and a supplier for police departments. To Silas, the white Ford Explorer isn't a tool for tricking people, but a demo unit designed to show off his technical skills. He believes that by building a vehicle with more advanced equipment than a standard patrol car, he is proving his value to the local deputies. He even tells the officers that he has been trying to get their business for years, showing his shop and his car to anyone who would look. However, Silas has a major flaw: he is so focused on his business goals that he completely ignores the law. He truly believes that because he is a supporter of law enforcement, the rules about marked vehicles do not apply to him. He calls his car a marketing asset and acts as if his past as a supplier gives him a special kind of professional courtesy. While Silas stands by his car with his arms crossed, feeling proud of his work, he is actually blinded by his own pride. He wants respect in contracts, but his stubbornness prevents him from seeing that he is breaking the very laws he claims to support. This demo unit is his masterpiece, but his refusal to follow the rules has turned it into his biggest mistake. The trouble did not start on the day of the arrest, it began 3 days earlier on May 7th, near Santa Rosa Beach. Silas was driving his marked Ford Explorer through Walton County when a real deputy pulled up alongside him. The deputy was stunned by what he saw: a vehicle with Santa Rosa Beach Police printed clearly on the side and a badge-style insignia that looked official. Even as a professional, the officer admitted he couldn't tell the car was fake until he was standing right next to it. Instead of being nervous, Silas was excited to show off. He handed the deputy his business card for police supply and began to talk shop. He proudly showed the officer the AR-15 style firearms and the high-end gear he had inside the car. Silas even offered to turn on his emergency lights, bragging to the deputy, "I got more than you got." He acted as if the traffic stop was a chance to make a sales pitch rather than a serious legal encounter. The deputy, however, did not see a business partner, he saw a major safety risk. He told Silas that the car was right there at the line of being illegal and that having the word police on a private vehicle was too much. Although the officer didn't take Silas to jail that night, he took photos of the car and told him he would be sending a formal letter. This was Silas's chance to fix his mistake and strip the decals, but his pride had already convinced him that he was doing nothing wrong. The deputy's voice was calm but serious as he stood by Silas's custom car near the beach. He explained that while Silas might think he was helping, his vehicle was creating a dangerous situation for the public. "That thing looks way too much like a police vehicle," the deputy told him plainly. He pointed out the police decals and the badge on the door, explaining that most people would see those and immediately think Silas was a real officer. The officer warned Silas that he was right there at the line of breaking the law. He told him that a private citizen driving a car that mirrors a patrol unit so closely is a violation of state rules. The deputy even mentioned that he didn't want to arrest him right then and there, but that the department would be dealing with him soon. He promised to send a formal letter that would officially tell Silas he needed to take that thing down. Silas listened, but he didn't seem to take the threat seriously. He continued to argue that his car was for emergency management and that he just wanted to show the department what he could do. The deputy left that day hoping Silas would follow the rules, but the warning was clear: the car had to change, or Silas would face the consequences. For Silas, however, being on the line wasn't a warning, it was a challenge he was willing to take. Days passed after the roadside warning, and a formal letter from the sheriff's office finally arrived at Silas's doorstep. The letter was not a suggestion, it was a direct order to remove the police markings and the emergency lights from his Ford Explorer. The authorities had made it clear that if he didn't comply, he would be facing legal action. Silas, however, saw things differently. Instead of picking up a scraper to peel off the decals, he sat down at his computer and wrote an email to the department. He wasn't apologizing, he was inviting them to come to his shop. He truly believed that once the higher-ups saw his high-tech demo unit in person, they would realize he was an ally and not a criminal. He convinced himself that the law was meant for bad guys, and since he was a businessman supporting the police, he didn't need to follow the same rules. This was the moment Silas sealed his fate. By choosing to ignore the written warning, he turned a simple mistake into intent to mislead. He continued to drive the fully marked car around town, even taking it out to run errands for boat parts. To Silas, the car was a rolling billboard for his business, but to the deputies who were now securing a warrant for his arrest, it was a rolling crime scene. Around noon on May 10th, the quiet Texas air is suddenly filled with the sound of sirens and the flash of red and blue lights. This time, the lights are real. Walton County Sheriff's deputies have spotted Silas Thorne's Ford Explorer and are moving in to execute an arrest warrant. They don't treat this like a normal traffic stop. Because Silas is known to carry weapons and has a car that looks like a police cruiser, the deputies perform a felony stop, which is a very high-risk and serious procedure. Silas pulls over, likely expecting another friendly chat, but the reality is much different. He looks out his window to see multiple officers with their service weapons drawn and pointed right at him. The authoritative shouting begins immediately: "Step out of the car where I can see you. Hands in the air." Silas obeys, stepping out onto the pavement with his hands high, looking small against the backdrop of his massive, fake police SUV. Even as he is being ordered to walk backward toward the officers, Silas's overconfidence doesn't vanish. He tries to talk to them as if they are colleagues, shouting back that his car is supposed to look that way and even bragging about his equipment. But the deputies aren't listening to his sales pitch. To them, he isn't a peer or a businessman, he is a man who ignored a legal warning and is now being treated as a potential threat. The gap between Silas's fantasy of being a police supplier and the reality of having rifles pointed at him has never been wider. The standoff on the Texas highway reaches its breaking point as the lead deputy gives the final order. Silas Thorne, once proud of his custom police vehicle, now finds himself in a position of total submission. "Stop. Get down on your knees," the officer commands. Silas sinks to the pavement, the rough road surface a harsh reminder of how quickly his business trip has turned into a criminal arrest. The deputies move in quickly to secure him. "Hands behind your back." The metallic click of handcuffs echoes through the air as his wrists are locked together. Despite the serious nature of the felony stop, Silas tries to maintain his dignity, mentioning a bad egg or injury to his shoulder to get the officers to be more careful. The deputies, while firm, show a small amount of professional care, helping the 61-year-old stay down safely while they finish the procedure. Once the cuffs are on, the tension shifts from a tactical threat to a legal investigation. Silas is helped up and led toward the curb. "Right now, you're just being detained," an officer tells him, though they both know the arrest warrant has already been confirmed. Silas sits on the grass, looking at his masterpiece Ford Explorer from the outside. For the first time, he isn't the one behind the wheel, he is a man watching his dream be dismantled by the real law. As the deputies begin to search the white Ford Explorer, they aren't just looking for paperwork, they are looking for anything that proves Silas Thorne was trying to act like a real officer. The search starts at the front of the cabin, where the interior looks exactly like a mobile command center. They find a computer stand, a radio, and even a radar unit used to track speed. But the most shocking discovery happens when a deputy looks between the front seats. Locked firmly into a professional tactical rack is a real shotgun. The deputies stop for a moment, surprised by how far Silas took his demo project. "I'm looking at a shotgun," one officer says over his radio, his voice sounding more serious than before. Finding a weapon in a car that already looks like a police cruiser changes everything. It moves the situation from a simple case of fake stickers to a high-risk security issue. Silas, sitting nearby on the curb, tries to explain it away. He tells the officers the gun has been in there forever and that it isn't even chambered. He claims he just jumped in the car to go buy a boat part and forgot the weapon was there. But the deputies don't see an innocent mistake. They see a man who has equipped himself with the tools of a law enforcement officer without having the badge or the training to go with them. The shotgun is no longer just a tool for protection, it is now piece of evidence number one in a case of police impersonation. Silas Thorne sits on the grass, his hands cuffed behind his back, trying to maintain his composure as a businessman. He repeatedly tells the deputies that he isn't a criminal, but a professional who supplies equipment to law enforcement agencies. To Silas, the car isn't a tool for deception, it's a demo unit meant to show off the high-tech gear he can provide. He explains that he has been in the police supply business for over 10 years and even sold weapons to departments in the past. "This is embarrassing, man," Silas mutters, looking at the ground. He explains that he only jumped in the car without a shirt to run a quick errand for boat parts before the shop closed. He insists that he has been trying to get the deputies to come by his shop so they can see his capabilities and do business with him. In his mind, the car is a rolling advertisement, and he believes that if the officers just understood his background, they would let him go with a handshake. However, the deputies aren't moved by his story. They remind him that regardless of his business license, the way the vehicle is displayed violates state law. Silas continues to argue that he is not pretending to be a police officer, but the reality of the handcuffs tells a different story. He remains convinced that he will win this 100% in court because he believes his intentions were pure. But as he sits on the curb, the gap between his self-image as a respected businessman and his current status as a detainee continues to grow. The deputies move their focus to the outside of the Ford Explorer, which serves as the most obvious evidence of Silas's crime. Standing on the Texas shoulder, the officers look at the bold, high-contrast decals that Silas was ordered to remove days ago. On both the driver and passenger sides, the word police is printed in large, professional block letters that are impossible to miss. Beside the police markings, Silas added a DRE logo, a symbol famously used by law enforcement for school safety programs. These decals weren't just stickers, they were part of a carefully designed look meant to mirror a real Walton County patrol unit. The officers note that Silas even used a badge-style insignia reading Santa Rosa Beach Police, which made the vehicle look like it belonged to a specific local agency. As the real deputies take photos of the markings, they explain why this is such a serious issue. To a regular driver, these decals are a signal to pull over or slow down, creating a risk that someone might stop for Silas thinking he is a real officer. While Silas claims these are just for his demo unit, the law sees them as a tool for deception. By keeping the police and DRE signs on his car after being warned, Silas transformed his vehicle from a hobby project into a violation of state law. The investigation moves inside the vehicle, where the deputies discover just how much high-tech gear Silas Thorne packed into his Ford Explorer. It isn't just about the outside stickers, the inside is a fully functioning command center. Mounted on the dashboard is a professional radar unit used to clock the speed of other drivers, and a computer stand sits ready for a laptop, just like in a real patrol car. As the officers look closer, they find a radio system and even a spotlight mounted on the side of the car, which is a classic tool for police work. "I got more lights than you got," Silas had bragged earlier, and the deputies quickly see he wasn't lying. The roof is topped with a full-sized light bar, and more emergency lights are hidden in the back windows, making the car almost impossible to tell apart from a real cruiser during a traffic stop. The deputies are amazed by the high-value stuff Silas has installed. They find leather duty gear, ammunition, and even a radio in the back seat. To Silas, this technology was proof of his skill as a supplier, but to the law, it is a collection of tools used to impersonate an officer. Every piece of tech in the car adds another layer of evidence against him, showing that this wasn't just a hobby, it was a complete transformation of a civilian car into a fake police interceptor. The deputies can't help but be curious about how well the fake car actually works. While Silas sits nearby, the officers begin to test the features of the Ford Explorer. One deputy reaches inside and flips a switch, and suddenly, the area is filled with the bright, flashing glow of blue emergency lights. "Hey, check it out," one officer says, clearly surprised by the quality. Next, they test the siren. A loud, wailing yell erupts from the front of the car, sounding exactly like a real police cruiser. The deputies are almost amused by just how closely the car mirrors their own patrol units. "He got everything but credentials, right?" one deputy jokes to his partner. They continue to inventory the high-value equipment, finding a radio in the back seat and a computer system that actually functions. While the officers find the situation interesting, they also know it is serious evidence of impersonation. Testing the blue lights and the siren confirms that Silas didn't just want his car to look like a police vehicle, he wanted it to act like one, too. This test proves that the car is much more than a demo unit for a business, it is a fully functional fake that could easily trick anyone on the road. The pride that Silas Thorne felt earlier in the day has completely vanished. He is no longer the confident businessman showing off his interceptor. Instead, he is a 61-year-old man sitting on the dirt at the edge of a busy road with no shirt on and his hands locked behind his back. As cars drive past, he realizes how embarrassing this situation has become. "This is embarrassing, man," he tells the deputies, his voice sounding tired and defeated. He tries to explain that he only looks this way because he was in a rush to get a boat part before a shop closed. He begs the officers to let him stand up because his ankles and shoulders are hurting from being held on the ground. Even though the deputies help him up, the reality of the situation is sinking in. He isn't being treated as a police supplier or a friend to the department, he is being treated as a prisoner. The most painful part for Silas is watching the real deputies go through his car and mock his equipment. He has to sit there and listen while they laugh about his sirens and lights. He realizes that all the money and time he spent trying to look like a hero has only resulted in him sitting on a curb in handcuffs, waiting to be taken to jail. His demo unit is being towed away, and his reputation as a businessman is being towed away with it. As the roadside investigation winds down, the focus shifts to the legal consequences facing Silas Thorne. The lead deputy explains that the arrest warrant has been fully confirmed, and the charges are serious. Silas asks if he can just drive his car home, but the officer quickly shuts that idea down. Because the Ford Explorer itself is the primary evidence of the crime, it must be towed and held by the police. The officers explain the specific nature of the violations. Silas is facing a charge for falsely displaying symbols on a vehicle and fraudulent impersonation. While Silas tries to argue that he is going to win the case 100% because he didn't mean any harm, the deputies explain that his intent to mislead the public is what matters in the eyes of the law. The most crushing news for Silas comes when they discuss his bail. One of the deputies tells him that at least one of the charges is likely a felony. This means Silas won't be able to just pay a small fine and walk away, he will have to stay in jail until he can see a judge. Ultimately, Silas is officially charged with a misdemeanor for operating a vehicle with the intent to mislead as an official agency vehicle. He is told he will need a $25,000 bond to be released while his court case moves forward. The gap between his life as a free businessman and a man facing a felony record is now a permanent reality. The final moments of the arrest are filled with a heavy silence as the tow truck arrives to take Silas Thorne's Ford Explorer away. The vehicle that was once his pride and joy is now just a piece of evidence in a criminal file. Silas is placed into the back of a real patrol car, where he is told that the rules are strict. No matter his age, he must sit in the back just like any other suspect. Silas was ultimately charged with a misdemeanor for operating a vehicle with the intent to mislead people into thinking it was an official agency car. To get out of jail, he had to pay a $25,000 bond. While he waits for his day in court, his demo unit stays locked away, and the shotgun and ammunition he carried are held for safekeeping by the real police. This experience serves as a powerful lesson about the line between supporting the law and trying to be the law. Silas Thorne wanted to be a respected businessman and an ally to the deputies, but by ignoring their warnings and keeping his fake decals, he lost his freedom and his vehicle. His legacy as a police supplier is now overshadowed by a court case that could change his life forever.